Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Hello and welcome. It's Tuesday, so it's Open Forum here on Catholic Answers Live. Open Forum means open to anybody. Whether you're Catholic or not Catholic, you are welcome to call. We'd love to take your call, as a matter of fact. But Open Forum also means open to any question you've got about the Catholic Church. Maybe you've always wondered, what does that mean when Catholics say this or that belief that they have? Or maybe why do they hold that belief? All your questions about the Catholic Church are welcome. 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Maybe you're not a Christian and you have a more general question about Christianity in general. That's welcome as well. 888-318-7884. Our guest this hour is the Director of Apologetics and Evangelization here at Catholic Answers, the author of Nuts and Bolts, and of a 20 Answers book called Mary, and of Behold Your Mother, a biblical and historical defense of the Marian doctrines. Tim Staples, how are you?
This is the first time you've gotten all three of them right.
Did I really? Mary is the hard one to remember.
Well, it's good to be with you, man. I'm just back from Berkeley, California.
Oh!
But I'm very disappointed.
Nobody protested or anything?
I didn't get one rock thrown at me.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that.
I know. It was sad.
Have you softened your message? Or what's
I guess. No, actually, it was wonderful. We had a great time up there. And you know what? I've got to share. Can I share this with the folks?
Yes. I don't know what it is, so but yes. Okay.
No, it's just wonderful doing what we do, Cy, and going up and speaking to a bunch of college kids there at Berkeley, here, University of California. There was a big group of Dominicans there. Of course, they have a house right down the road there. And there were a number of priests and a whole bunch of brothers that are on their way to the priesthood. And this one brother came up to me and shared. He said, Tim, I have to tell you, years ago, he said, I had my life all planned out. I was wanting to go and study political science and go into politics. He said, that's what I wanted to do from the time I was a little kid. I want to be a Catholic politician that changes the world, right?
Wow.
And he said, I heard you speak, and it changed my life and upended me, and here I am now. About to be a priest.
Wow. Praise God for that. Huh?
But it was kind of like it really got him fired up, and then he started down that road of learning the faith, learning apologetics, studying, and he fell in love with our Lord and Our Lady and Holy Mother Church, and now he's on his way. You know, and when you do this as we do, Cy, I mean, it's humbling. It's all those things because you realize what a knucklehead you are, and yet, you know, God uses us to bring a life-changing message to just one soul, man, and it is totally, absolutely all worth everything we ever do.
So you're saying I'm a knucklehead, but God uses you to bring... Is that what... that's what, I wasn't sure about the syntax of that sentence.
No, it was no, actually I said we're knucklehead.
Oh, okay, all right. I thought it was I'm the knucklehead, and God uses you, Tim Staples, to do... which is actually probably true, now that I think about it. 888-31-TRUTH is our number, 888-318-7884. Open Forum, you don't have to be Catholic to call. As a matter of fact, we like calls from non-Catholics, lukewarm Catholics, on-fire Catholics, anybody you can call with any question you've got about the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church. Already, every single line full.
Wow.
So what do you think, Tim?
I say let's go to it.
All right, let's start with Nick in New Orleans, listening on the Catholic Answers Live app. So we know he's a smart man because he got the Catholic Answers Live app. Nick, your question for Tim.
Hey, thanks you guys for taking my call. I had a family member bring up something along the lines of the Pope at the time of World War II with Nazi Germany supporting Hitler, I guess, in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
I researched it on your website, and I couldn't really find anything to dispute the claim, so I was hoping maybe you can enlighten me.
Sure. Yeah, it's a popular myth. But actually, there's a wonderful article here from the Catholic Herald called "The End of Hitler," the end of the Hitler's Pope myth. If you want to check that out, yeah, let's try that again. If you want to check that out online, it was published in the Catholic Herald, "The End of the Hitler's Pope myth." And there's a number of books as well that have been published by Catholic authors, and I'm trying to think of them. Cy, do you have one in your head? Exposing that myth, and I'm trying to think of a title here.
I do not have one in my head.
Yeah, but I'll get one in a moment. The bottom line is, in fact, Pope Pius XII, when he was Eugenio Pacelli, during the reign of Pope Pius XI, was the man behind the encyclical letter of 1936 of Pope Pius XI, the only encyclical letter ever written in the history of the Church in German. And again, it was Eugenio Pacelli who was the brains behind it. It was Pius XI's encyclical. What is it? What is it now?
Mitbrennender Sorge.
Yes. Mitbrennender Sorge or Sorge.
Sorge, is that?
However you pronounce that.
I'm glad I helped you with the pronunciation. I don't even know what it is myself, but
yes,
I realize I don't know the last word. But yeah, with a burning heart is what it means.
Yes,
yeah.
And what's amazing, and I'm not sure how to pronounce that last word. What's amazing, though, is the Church at this time, and even as late as 1940, 1941, was the sole voice speaking out in the world in a unified voice against fascism and Hitler. And Pius XII continued that. He was heroic in his stance against fascism and such. And what ended up happening, though, is because Pope Pius XII, who obviously became Pope after Pius XI, was so outspoken against Hitler and Nazi fascism, it was causing people to be killed. And the Pope made the decision to stop with the so much vocal attacks, if you will, against fascism, and he began a systematic fight against fascism by saving as many lives as he could, in particular Jewish lives. And in fact, the Catholic Church had networks throughout Europe that ended up saving so many Jews and in so many creative ways that if you take, for example, the then chief rabbi of Rome at the time, who knew Pius XII, the chief rabbi of Rome ended up converting to the Catholic faith after the war. What was his name? The chief rabbi of Rome. Now that's running out of my ears. That'll come to me too. When he became Catholic after the war, he took as his confirmation name Eugenio, after Pope Pius XII, because of the heroic way that the Pope stood up against fascism, both in his words early on and then in his actions in saving Jews through networks in the city of Rome as well as around Europe. And what's amazing is that Pius XII was, what's his name there?
Israel Zoli.
Israel Zoli, Rabbi Zoli. His name was Israel Zoli. He converted to the Catholic faith and took the name Eugenio as his confirmation name, which is absolutely amazing. And after the war, of course, Pius XII was heralded as a hero for 20 years. Throughout Europe, throughout the world, Pius XII was a hero until the 1960s, around 1967. And there are those who point to an off Broadway play called The Deputy, where Pius XII is portrayed as a scoundrel who was, secretly anti-Semitic and so forth. And that, it's hard for me to fathom that would be the entire sort of spearhead. There are those who make that argument, but it definitely was it appears to be a turning point in 1967. And then, of course, when the Western media gets behind something, they just basically turned on Pope Pius, and Pius became a whipping boy, and his memory was besmirched, and he was lied about, calumniated to such a degree. It is astonishing. But there are lots of works here in, isn't there, gosh, I'm trying to think of the book didn't Ignatius Press put out on.
Oh, I don't know, but Ron Reichlek has a book.
Yes, what's that one?
That one is called Soldier of Christ, I think. Sorry, let me look here. Soldier of Christ, The Life of Pope Pius XII.
Got it, okay.
And then there are a couple others. Hitler, the War, and the Pope is also Ron Reichlek's book. So Hitler, the War, and the Pope is probably the one that people want. That's Ron Reichlek's book. And I don't know, that might be Ignatius Press.
Gotcha. Let's see here. I'm boy, this is embarrassing because I cannot think of that. There was a great book that I read years ago. But here's one, Catholics Confronting Hitler, the Catholic Church and the Nazis, by Peter Bartley from Ignatius Press also. And we'll get some more for you here before this show is over. But there's a lot of books out there today, thanks be to God, in that article I gave you.
Church of Spies,
well.
Ignatius Press.
Church of Spies.
Yeah, that's probably. Oh, look, and here comes Darren.
There we go. See?
He won't give. Watch him sneak in. He won't be on the camera though. Hitler, the War, and the Pope. Ron Reichlek's book. Yeah,
that's the one. Here it is.
Yeah, our Sunday Visitor Press.
Hitler, the War, and the Pope by Ronald Reichlek. So lots of great information here. The truth about the heroic acts of Pope Pius XII against fascism and in favor of our Jewish brethren.
Hey, thanks very, very much for that call, Nick. We do have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Tim Staples, Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
Don't you just love listening to Tim Staples? Did you know you can book Tim or any of our other great speakers to speak at your parish or special event? Contact one of our seminar coordinators through the Speakers Bureau section on Catholic.com today to find out more information.
Howdy folks, this is Jimmy Akin, and I'm here to tell you about the 20 Answers Challenge. Here's how it works. When you purchase the sampler of all 26 books in the 20 Answers series, we're going to knock 60% off the price. Then you can challenge yourself to finish them all this Lent and Easter season. And this year, to make it easier, we're offering free shipping on the sampler if you live in the continental United States. That's 60% off, free shipping, and over 500 answers to questions you've had about the Catholic faith. Join us this Lent and Easter to take the 20 Answers Challenge, and together we can be part of something great. Call 1-888-291-8000 or visit the shop at Catholic.com now to get your set and begin taking the 20 Answers Challenge today.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their Catholic values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
A lot of people think that street evangelization involves yelling out of a bullhorn telling people that they're going to hell. Not so with St. Paul's Street Evangelization. Our methods are non-confrontational and effective. We simply offer information on the Catholic faith along with rosaries, miraculous medals, and prayer. Pope Francis wrote about how beautiful it is to see street preachers joyfully bringing Jesus to every corner of the earth. Street evangelization is fun and fruitful. Join us today at streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live. Our Director of Apologetics and Evangelization here at Catholic Answers is Tim Staples, and he is our guest this hour, taking any question that you've got on the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church. Why do we believe what we believe? What is it exactly that we believe? All questions welcome, and all callers welcome, whether you're Catholic or not. 318-7884. Did you want to follow up with that answer on Hitler's Pope?
Yeah.
From Nick.
Yeah, I wanted to recommend, there was one other book, and it's actually, and I also wanted to mention that Hitler, the War, and the Pope by Ronald Reichlach is actually published by Our Sunday Visitor. It was not Ignatius Press, so we'll leave it at that. But this is, it's been revised and expanded, and it has all the facts. It is documented to the nth degree.
And his work is not like hagiography either. Like, he'll get into the flaws of the Pope. He's not hiding anything.
Sure.
But will straighten out this really, as you said, Tim, calumny against Pope Pius.
Yes.
Who was by no means an anti-Semite or Hitler's Pope in any way.
Amen.
Let's go to George in Toledo, Ohio, listening on 89.7 FM Annunciation Radio. Annunciation, that's one of the Marian doctrines, right?
Amen.
Okay, so Tim will be happy to take your call. George, what's your question for Tim?
Basically, wanted to find out if a child is born in vitro, does it have a soul?
Yes, George, absolutely. That's an example of how God works with human beings, even when we do things in an immoral way. God brings good out of even evil actions. As our chaplain said not long ago at Mass, if you remember, Si, God uses occasions like that, even grave evils, to show forth his mercy and his grace. And I think that's a glorious example of people that are doing something that's objectively grave sin in vitro fertilization. What happens? God uses that as an occasion to bring about good in a newborn human being.
Does that work for you, George?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, George. I got a question typed in on YouTube from someone who uses the handle Unique. Tim, why is it that we can have occasions of merit, yet can't merit the grace of final perseverance? It seems just that all those who abide in grace to the end would receive this grace as a reward.
Ah, very good. All right. Zach, here's the key. While it is true we cannot merit the grace of final perseverance, we must cooperate with that grace in order to finally be saved. So we make the distinction, and you ask a very important question. We make the distinction between the grace itself that cannot be merited any more than we can merit the initial grace of justification. But unlike the grace of unlike that initial grace, let's say a baby can do absolutely nothing to merit in any sense that initial grace of justification. He is justified at the point that he's baptized. We have to cooperate with that grace as adults in order for that grace to be effectual in our lives. So don't think because we cannot merit the grace itself that there's not something we have to do. There is. We have to cooperate. And in that sense, we then merit salvation by cooperating with that gift that's completely unmerited. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. And thanks for the question. I'm going to read you another question because we're going international here. And while I'm reading questions, that was from Unique on YouTube. This is from Angelina on Facebook. And she is in India. And a Catholic in India, and she had some Jehovah's Witnesses pass by her door, and she had an argument about Jesus and Michael the Archangel being the same. I really don't know which scriptures to reason out with them. Could you kindly help?
Right. That is a great question. Here's what you want to do. Go to your Bible in Hebrews chapter 1. And I happen to have a Bible right here. In Hebrews chapter 1, and just to give you a little background here on Hebrews, the entire book is being written by, and we don't know, many people believe St. Paul most likely was not, but it was certainly Pauline, perhaps an Apollos or someone who's had contact with St. Paul. But the inspired author of the letter to the Hebrews is writing, and this is not a trick question. Who is the? I'll ask Cy Kellett this, since we're not on the phone with our.
Right. Okay. So I'll answer for Angelina.
Who was the epistle to the Hebrews written to?
Oh, why do you give me the hard ones? Bob, Hebrew. No,
that's right. No, and it's not a trick question. It's being written to the Hebrews, but specifically to Christian Jews. They've been converted. They are Catholics. They are Christians, but they're being tempted to go back to the old covenant law in order to be saved. They're being tempted by Judaizers who were saying, in essence, hey, it's great you believe in Jesus, but you also need to be circumcised. You need to go to the priest. You need to go to the temple. And remember, when this was being written, the temple was still standing in first century Israel. So when you read through Hebrews, you see how the inspired author is basically showing how the new covenant, Jesus Christ himself and the new covenant church sacraments are far superior to the old. And right off at the get-go here, because remember in first century Israel, they had a great devotion to angels. There was a great devotion to angels, a belief that, angels mediated the covenant to Moses, the old covenant, and all sorts of beliefs like that about angels. There was a lot of devotion to angels in the first century, and this is why the letter to the Hebrews starts off, it's almost like it's the letter to the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh.
Because he's writing to the Jews, and the first thing he does here is show how Jesus is superior to the angels. In other words, he's not an angel. He's superior to the angels. And you want to go to Hebrews chapter 1, verse 5. Listen to this. For to what angel did God ever say, Thou art my son, today I have begotten thee? Or again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. And again, when he brings the firstborn into the world, he says, let all God's angels worship him. Of the angels, he says, who maketh his angels winds and his servants flames of fire. But of the Son, he says, thy throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter, the righteous scepter is the scepter of thy kingdom. For thou hast loved righteousness and hated lawlessness. Therefore, God thy God hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness beyond thy comrades. And thou didst found the earth in the beginning, and the heavens are the work of thy hands. Verse 10 there, my friends, is quoting Psalm 102, verses 25 through 27, which talks about God creating the universe. Well, guess what? Here we have God the Father speaking to God the Son and saying that the Son created the universe. Right? This is an awesome text. These 6 verses, verses 5 through 10, well, if you include 5, that would actually be 6 verses. The whole point is, Jesus is not an angel. He's superior to the angels. He is, in fact, God, the Creator. Let me tell you, slam dunk for our Jehovah's Witness friends and anyone who would think that, Jesus Christ is the Archangel Michael. It eliminates that possibility right here.
Angelina, thanks for writing. That was on Facebook that you posted that from India. And you had a good experience in India, didn't you? Lots of good Catholic people in India. I mean, lots of good people of all kinds in India, but...
I want to go back. Steve Ray and I went, I think we were there for about 2 weeks. It was right at about 14 days. That would be 2 weeks.
Yeah. Your math is good today.
I'm telling you, it was phenomenal. The faith of those people. Did you know that India is one of the largest Catholic countries in the world?
No,
now,
I did not know
it's
that.
not a Catholic country, obviously, but one of the most highly number of Catholics of any country in the world, because you have 1.1 or 1.2 billion people in that country.
Right.
They actually have about 30 million Catholics, which makes it one of the largest.
Wow.
I think the Philippines is the largest. I think America is
Brazil,
up there.
too.
Yeah, Brazil and the Philippines are.
Yeah.
I forget which one's number 1.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. Those are like 1 and 2. I think the United States might be 3 or 4. Mexico, I think, is above the United States in numbers of Catholics. So at any rate, we're up there, but India is right behind
Isn't that
there.
something? You just don't think of that.
Yeah, we have about 67 to 70 million in the United States, as I recall, and you have 30 million in India. But at any rate, they are persecuted, especially in the north, in India. Down south, there's a lot more religious freedom, even though it's technically illegal for a Hindu to convert to the Christian faith or to Catholicism. They're a lot more lax down in the southern part where I was, in Mumbai and such. But even so, there is persecution of Christians, but I will tell you, those people, man, their faith is alive. They were on fire when Steve Ray and I were there. It was humbling to see these folks. Terrible poverty, just the worst poverty in the world. But the faith is alive, and evangelization is happening in India.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, it is humbling, too, because we live in such freedom and safety and comfort, and our fire needs a little stoking.
Amen, brother.
Tim Staples is our guest. Our topic, whatever is on your mind about the Catholic Church, because it's open forum. You don't have to be Catholic to call. 888-318-7884. We'll be right back with more after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live.
We need Catholic radio because we need the voice of the Church in the public forum. We live in a time that the secular voice dominates so thoroughly that we need to get that Catholic perspective out. Just as Fulton Sheen used radio and TV in the last century, we need to continue to use. This means to announce the Catholic faith in the public forum.
Bishop Robert Barron thinks Catholic radio is important. So should you.
We struggle with sin. We're distracted in prayer. We find it hard to be loving and easy to be selfish. Thankfully, the Church has given us Lent, the perfect time for reform, of reconversion to God and His will for us. The saints of the Counter-Reformation faced greater obstacles than these, yet they each found the grace to persevere during a tumultuous time in the Church. How can we do the same? Reform yourself is a good place to start. We all need to reform our souls. This Lent, let the saints who reformed the Church show you how. Order your copy of Reform Yourself today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
The world is changing. The days of picking up a book or popping a DVD or compact disc in the player have given way to the digital age. The good news is that the shop at Catholic.com has joined the digital revolution. Check out the new digital platform at shop.catholic.com, where all of our DVDs, books, and audio products are now available in digital form for you to purchase and download at your convenience, anywhere you go. For that matter, anywhere in the world. We've got hundreds of offerings, so visit shop.catholic.com today and check out our selection. That's shop.catholic.com.
That's the semi-groovy music. It's almost groovy. That is almost groovy, that music. I gotta wait till Thursday for the groovy music. Thanks, Nick. Cy Kellett, your host. This is Catholic Answers Live, and our topic this hour, open forum. Any question you've got, if it's in any way connected to the Catholic faith, we'll do our very best to get you a good, solid answer. Our Director of Apologetics and Evangelization, Tim Staples, is our guest this hour. And Tim, among his many other writings, has written a 20 Answers book, 20 Answers about Mary in the 20 Answers series. Questions like, if Jesus had brothers, wouldn't that mean that Mary had other children? Or how can Mary be without sin? Like, very important and basic questions about Mary. Is there a queen in the kingdom of heaven?
Yes, and also near the later on in those 20 questions, I get the things like, are we guilty of praying vain repetition against the command of Christ in Matthew 6:7 by praying the rosary? I also get to, how can Mary hear the prayers of millions of people at the same time? Wouldn't she have to be God? So we get into a lot of things.
She's a mother, that's
and yeah, amen. She can multitask, baby. But we get into a lot of things in there about the communion of saints as well that I didn't get into in my book.
In the big book, Behold Your
Mother.
The big
one, yeah.
Which is behind you somewhere.
It's behind me, yeah.
I don't have it.
Behold Your Mother. So, yeah. And that, I understand, we have something going on with these 20 Answers books.
That's part of why I mentioned it, because we're still selling this 20 Answers sampler. It contains all 26 books, including Tim's book on Mary. In the series, they're 60% off. It's just 40% of the usual cost, and the shipping is free. We're going to ship it to you at no cost. You get all 26 20 Answers books. Somebody tells me that that's like 520 answers. That's what I've been told by people who can actually do math. If you took part in the challenge last year, we got 6 new books, so you might want to get those 6 new books. And the way the challenge works is we challenge you, once you get your packets, try to get the whole thing read by the end of the Easter season. You will get a heck of a Catholic education. If you do, just go to shop.catholic.com to get your set for 60% off and free shipping. We go now to Anonymous in an anonymous location. Anonymous, your question for Tim Staples.
Sure. My question is, I have an aunt that passed away about 2.5 months ago, and she was cremated. Her adult children are having problems with the passing of their mother, and they're kind of taking the urn to family functions, and I even wanted to bring her to Mass one time. I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to deal with talking about that.
Yeah.
And also, she had mentioned that she wanted to be scattered over Niagara Falls, and I think she said it in passing, and I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to talk about having a holy burial.
Yes. Now, you say this is your mother? Or your...
No, it's my aunt.
Oh, your aunt. Okay,
My
now...
aunt. So she has her own adult children.
Was she Catholic?
She was, and she had a Catholic Mass, and she was a practicing Catholic.
Okay, and she did not have a Catholic burial, though?
No, she was never buried. I think that the children still have the urn.
Now that's that's very odd, but that's contrary to the discipline of the Church. Now we should make clear here that there is nothing wrong in our Catholic discipline in cremation, even though there is a special place in our tradition for burial of the corpse without cremation, out of reverence for the body. You can be cremated. As you know, Anonymous, in the Middle Ages, there was a heavy influence of Gnosticism in our among the faithful, and so the Church condemned or would not allow cremation out of respect for the body, because there was such an influence of Gnosticism. And of course the Gnostics would cremate the body out of disdain for the body, because matter was considered evil. They did not believe in the resurrection of the body. And so the Church said no to cremation, because we wanted to be sure that faithful Catholics were not cremating out of disdain for the body. But now in modern times, because we don't really have that problem anymore, Gnosticism is not with us to any significant degree, although many will argue that it's there are some residuals culturally as a result of that which is a terrible heresy of radical separation between matter and spirit, that matter is evil, spirit is good, and leads to all sorts of horrible teachings, one among many being that the body is evil and therefore cremated. But now the Church permits cremation as long as, now the Church has made a caveat, as long as the body's not being cremated out of disdain for the body, because if it is, that would be sinful, and the Church does not permit that. Okay, now having said that, I know, Anonymous, that wasn't your question, but the Church has laid down guidelines as far as what is to be done with the body after it is cremated, and it must be placed in, and thank God at least the ashes have been placed in an urn and have not been scattered over Niagara Falls yet. So it's good that you're able to intervene here, because the Church condemns that practice of scattering the ashes, once again, because of the respect for the body. The ashes must be kept together, and the Church also commands us that the ashes must be buried in a consecrated place. And so we have, like right here in San Diego at Holy Cross Cemetery, we have a special area for, what do they call it?
The cremains.
The cremains, yes, to be buried in Catholic cemeteries, you have that special area that is consecrated. And I think the only thing you can do, my brother, is help them by teaching them, if you can, what the practice of the church is, and remind them that, hey, this is out of respect for the body. You want to have the cremains together in one place and placed in a sacred place so that you can go and visit, number one, and honor your beloved dead, but most importantly, so that we honor the body, which we believe to be not something that we should have any disdain for, but we believe the body is a temple. As St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, I think it's verse 19, your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And by the way, Si, I understand some people have a real disdain, if you will, for cremation, because is that the way to treat the temple? We cremate it. And I understand, I sympathize with that, but we have to be good children of the church and understand the church says, yes, we can do that. And sometimes financially it's a better thing for families, but the church put those parameters so that there still must be that respect for the body, hence in an urn, in one place, in a sacred area, so that we do recognize the inherent dignity of and goodness of that body. I think, Anonymous, that's about the best you can do to help them to see the truth of the matter. And then ultimately, if it's out of your hands, of course, it's out of your hands.
Anonymous, I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for the call. We go now to Grover in Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Grover, your question for Tim Staples.
Hey, Si, it sure was fun meeting you at the conference. And, Tim, we sure missed you.
Oh man, I can't wait till next year. I'm going to be there, God willing.
Me too. I was listening to this fella writer on the Holocaust today, Peter Hayes. I think he's a failed or failing Catholic.
Okay.
Because right in the middle on the Holocaust and what caused it, he had to attack the church and the Pope. Well, I've read 2 or 3 books on the subject, so he didn't fool me. But one of those books is Pope Pius XII, Architect of Peace, by Margarita Marcion, and it is really detailed.
Okay.
But anyway, here's my question. He threw me for a loop. He said the reason the church did not stand up to the Nazis was at that time, and he said pre-Vatican II, that the church believed that only through the sacraments could you attain salvation, and therefore the priest administered the sacraments, so the church didn't want all the priests to get killed off.
Oh my goodness!
And I thought, well, that's a pretty good reason, but I don't. That's not. I know what we believe now. Did we believe that before Vatican II?
Right. Well, Grover, we do in fact believe, and hang on for a second here, Grover, because we're going to have to qualify. We do believe that there is no salvation outside of the Catholic Church, and that the sacraments are necessary for our salvation. In fact, the reason why, if you read, for example, Lumen Gentium, the Dogmatic Constitution on the Church, paragraph 16, which talks about, in fact, all the way from paragraph 14 to paragraph 16, that's a document of Vatican II, and it talks about how that there is no salvation outside of the Catholic Church. And one of the reasons for that is, of course, that there's no salvation apart from Jesus Christ. In John 14:6, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except by me. And Jesus made salvation dependent upon a number of things: faith, perseverance, but very importantly, baptism, which 1 Peter 3:21 says baptism does now save us. Mark 16:16, Jesus says, he that believes and is baptized shall be saved. So Jesus gave us the sacraments, and in a very special way, baptism, which are necessary for our salvation. And it's because of that fact that Jesus is necessary, baptism is necessary. Baptism is the entrance into Jesus Christ and his church. You cannot separate Jesus Christ, the head, from his body, which is the church, Grover. It's an extremely important principle we try to hammer home here a lot, don't we, Si?
Yes, we do.
Ephesians chapter 1, verse 21 or 22 and 23, St. Paul says, Jesus Christ is the head over the body. And he describes the church there as the body of Christ, the fullness of him who fills all in all. Very important verse there. So the church is the body of Christ, the fullness of him, fullness of who? Jesus Christ, who fills all in all. So the church is Jesus Christ extended into this world. And the sacraments are necessary, in particular baptism, because that's our incorporation into Jesus Christ and therefore into his church. And so in one fell swoop there, you see how that Jesus Christ, the church, and the sacraments, now we're focusing on baptism, are necessary for our salvation. That is an objective truth, and I think that's what the author is getting at, although I totally disagree with him that that's the reason why the church, quote-unquote, didn't stand up to the Nazis. That's absolutely false, as we talked about earlier. The church did, in fact, in every which way but loose. But the bottom line is here, we still teach that Jesus Christ, the church, and the sacraments are necessary for salvation. However, Grover, we also believe that even though Cy Kellett, Tim Staples, everybody listening right now, every human person on this planet is bound by Jesus Christ and the sacraments, if we know about them, and apart from them, we will not be saved. We are bound to follow the commandments of Jesus Christ. And so when he established the church and told us we have to be baptized and enter into that church in order to be saved, we have to. So we are bound by that, Grover, but very importantly, God is not. God can reach people that are outside the visible boundaries of the Catholic Church. Now, the graces, let's take, for example, the Hindus in the middle of India somewhere and has never heard of Jesus Christ, but is seeking God the best way he knows that he can, given the grace that he's given there, and he's following the grace that he has, the bits and pieces of truth that he has. We believe he can be saved if he cooperates with those graces, and perseveres until his death. And this happens in ways known to God alone. He has the possibility of salvation. Now, those graces ultimately come through Jesus Christ and his church. We believe he will receive the grace that comes through Jesus Christ and the sacraments, the sacrament of baptism in particular, because of his desire. And if he has never rejected the truth of Jesus Christ and his church, then he has the possibility, not the guarantee, but the possibility of salvation if, again, he cooperates. So, Grover, I think this is just a matter of qualification and clarification, saying, yes, it's true, but I would say that that fellow needs to be corrected in this sense. He said before Vatican II, the church taught the sacraments are necessary. No, the church has taught that for 2,000 years and still teaches it today, but we just have to qualify the fact that folks can be saved by their desire for truth if they don't know or don't have access to the fullness of the truth that we alone possess as Catholics.
Grover, we have to take a break, but thank you very, very much for the call. It was nice meeting you at the conference. Hope you're coming again this year. We got a zip, though. We'll be right back with more Tim Staples on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
This is Bishop James Conley of the Diocese of Lincoln. Keep it right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Today, our faith is under attack like never before. Skeptics of all stripes are trying to undermine the very basis of our faith. Some critics argue that Jesus never even existed, and they've influenced tens of millions of people. Others have argued that even if Jesus existed, we can't trust the New Testament as history. No wonder so many people today doubt their faith or have lost it altogether. The good news is that there are answers to each and every one of their charges. That's why Catholic Answers Studios has just released a new DVD by Jimmy Akin titled The Dawn of Christian History. It's a powerful presentation in which Jimmy takes on the skeptics and refutes them point by point, showing you how even tiny details that you've never noticed all show how the New Testament is a faithful historical record. To make your donation and get a free copy of The Dawn of Christian History, visit Catholic.com and click the Dawn of Christian History banner. Or call us toll-free at 888-291-8000. That's the Dawn of Christian History banner at Catholic.com or call toll-free 888-291-8000.
Wouldn't it be great to have a book to give to anyone to explain exactly why Catholics believe what we believe? The good news is that now there is. Why We're Catholic is the groundbreaking resource by apologist Trent Horn. That one book you can hand to anyone as a starting point for helping them find their way into, or back to, the practice of the Catholic faith. This Lent, plant seeds of faith in the hearts and minds of your non-Catholic friends and family. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic today. You can order your copies of Why We're Catholic by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
2 big, huge, giant hours of open forum today. Tim Staples with us this hour. Next hour, Jim Blackburn will be here. But all of the questions from anyone are welcome as long as they have some connection to the Catholic faith. If you want to, is there something maybe you need to explain to a relative, a child, a parent, an aunt or an uncle, and you're having trouble doing it? Well, today is the day for you. Is there something that you would like explained, you'd like to understand better? Or maybe there's even something you'd like to challenge about what we Catholics profess and believe? Give us a call, 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884. Let's try to work through these questions before we get to the top of the hour. Let's go to, wait, where was I going to go now? Go to Jim in Minnesota, listening on Real Presence Radio. Sorry I had to hem and haw there, Jim. I got a little lost. Your question for Tim Staples.
Yes, I had talked to him last week about in vitro.
Yes.
And the church doesn't, agree with it. And I understand that an embryo has a soul and everything.
Yes.
And it's not the natural way.
Mm-hmm.
How did Mary get pregnant?
Right. Yeah, there is nothing in the way in which Mary was conceived that would be contrary to natural law, because natural law is, by definition, we as human beings, our rational participation in the eternal law of God, right? And so we see as a principle of the natural, in other words, we are bound by it, so that we see the purpose of the conjugal act is both the union of one man, one woman, and in fact, principally the procreation of children, and secondly, the union of one man and one woman. If we act contrary to that, whether it's in vitro fertilization or contraception and such, we willfully thwart God's will for the conjugal act. Now, God acting upon Mary in a conjugal sense is a mystery, number one, but God did that. So God is not bound by natural law as we are. So it would be wrong for us to say, God, I don't see how that, you're obeying natural law. He's the author of natural law. He is the eternal law himself. So we could say that, we have confidence in knowing that God's not doing anything that would be contrary to his own nature. But we can't put him in the category of a human being because the Holy Spirit is not. And so when he acts upon Mary in a conjugal sense, this is a mystery that transcends human knowledge. We can't fully comprehend how it even happened, but we do know he would not do anything that would be contrary to the eternal law. Whereas in vitro fertilization, for example, is demonstrably contrary to the natural law. Does that help at all, Jim?
I was cutting out there. The last part you said started with in vitro. What did you say about that?
Yes, in vitro fertilization is demonstrably contrary to natural law because we know that in vitro violates the unitive aspect of the conjugal act. So we can know that is, violating the nature of the conjugal act and therefore natural law.
Okay, Jim?
Let me ask you, who are Mary's parents?
Mary's parents is St. Anne and St. Joachim. Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jim. Call again. We do this open forum every Tuesday and Thursday. I'm going to keep moving, though, because I want to get to as many of these as I can. Let's go to Zach in Wakarusa, Indiana. I hope I said that right. Listening on 95.7 FM Redeemer Radio. Zach, your question for Tim Staples.
Yeah, I had a question. So every so often I see this post on Facebook about how, like, gay marriage is okay to the Christian faith because, like, you know, there's a new covenant that was made through Jesus, and, you know, the laws in Leviticus don't matter anymore because, you know, we're not Jewish, we're Christians. And I was just wondering, like, how do we go about thinking about that? Is there a new covenant? Do we not follow it anymore? Or what's our basis for pretty much saying that we don't condone gay marriage and stuff? And yeah.
Oh, gay marriage. Okay. Well, first, look, it looks like you have two separate questions here. One is the laws in Leviticus. Let's tackle that first. We know that the law of Leviticus has passed away. In fact, the old law has passed away. For example, in the New Covenant, we read in Hebrews chapter 7, verse 11. And by the way, if you were listening earlier, I talked about how the letter to the Hebrews is actually written to a group of Jewish Christians who are being tempted to go back to the Old Testament law for salvation, and that's why it's being written, which is very helpful for your question, because here in Hebrews 7, verse 11, the inspired author says, if perfection comes through the Levitical priesthood, what further need was there that another priest should arise and be called after the order of Melchizedek, and not according to the order of Aaron? For where there is a change in priesthood, there is of necessity a change of law. So notice here, he's saying, why are you going back to the Levitical priesthood and the Levitical law? Because it's gone. The Levitical priesthood, and therefore the say that 5 times fast. The Levitical law has passed away. We have a new law in Christ, right? And what is that new law? Well, the new law includes the natural law, such as the 10 Commandments, and many aspects of things, like you mentioned Leviticus 18:22 that condemns homosexual acts. Well, that's included in the new covenant law, not because it's in Leviticus, but because it's contrary to nature. Natural law is something we find, for example, in Romans chapter 2, verse 14. St. Paul tells us that the natural law written on our hearts binds everyone, Jew and Gentile. So we say that homosexual acts are wrong because they are contrary to natural law, which Paul alludes to there in Romans 2:14. Of course, we don't need a Bible to tell us that homosexual acts and murder, lying, stealing, the 10 Commandments basically are wrong, because we can know that just through the use of our reason. But as far as divine revelation goes, we also have texts of Scripture like 1 Timothy 1:10, 1 Corinthians 6, verse 9, and other texts in the New Testament that Romans chapter 1, verses 21 through 29, that explicitly condemn homosexual acts as well. So we know that homosexual acts are always and in every situation gravely sinful because of what we can know just through natural, the pure light of natural reason, through natural law, and we also have it in the New Testament explicitly condemned as well. And God reveals that to us because, you know, let's face it, a lot of times we're not able to, a lot of people aren't able to really take the time to study philosophy and such and know that things are wrong through the natural light of reason. And so God gives us revelation, and he gives us the church so that everyone can know it readily and with facility, as St. Thomas Aquinas says. And in this case, that homosexual acts, not the tendency, mind you, but the acts are always and in every situation gravely sinful.
Zach, thank you very, very much. You can hear the music, so you know that we got to go. But if you're on the line, stay on the line. We're going to continue with our open forum for another hour. Jim Blackburn will be here Tim Staples is the author of Behold Your Mother. You should get that book, one of the best books you will get on Mary, and explains all the Marian doctrines and why they are, in fact, true and important. Tim, thanks for a great hour.
Great to be with you. I wish I had more time, brother. We just got started.
I know. It does feel like we just got started. Well, I'm still here for another hour, Tim. So
all right.
We'll be back with more Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Open Forum Tuesday here on Catholic Answers Live. You've been saving up a question, or maybe one just occurred to you about us Catholics and what we do and believe and why we do and believe those things. Give us a call, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. If you're Catholic and you're looking to understand your faith better, perfect day for you to call. And if you're not a Catholic and you'd like to either understand what we Catholics believe or you'd like to challenge it, give us a call, 888-318-7884. If you like the spelling version, it's 888-31-TRUTH. And taking your questions this hour is Catholic apologist and speaker Jim Blackburn, long associated with Catholic Answers. And he has a book, 101 Quick Questions with Catholic Answers, Marriage, Divorce, and Annulment. And he also wrote the divorce and remarriage edition of the 20 Answers in the 20 Answers series. He wrote several more 20 Answers books, 20 Answers Scripture and Tradition, 20 Answers the Papacy, 20 Answers Homosexuality. And Jim Blackburn, welcome.
Thank you very much. And you remembered all of them. I appreciate that, Si.
I actually wrote them down, Jim.
You did?
Yeah, I have notes in front of me. But
okay.
I tried my best. But I always will probably miss one or something. But
well, you may not have been able to see this, but I have copies of them in front of me so that I don't forget.
Oh, nice. You keep copies of your own books right there in front of you. That is an excellent idea. Again, 888-318-7884, the number, 888-318-7884. Jim, what's the most recent one you wrote? Was it the divorce and remarriage one? Oh, okay. We got a little problem with Jim. I think it was the divorce and remarriage one, so I'm going to answer for him. Yes, it was the divorce and remarriage one. Again, our number, 888-318-7884. When I say Jim has had a long association with Catholic Answers, I mean, in fact, that Jim has worked here for many years, and he is one among the speakers on the Catholic Answers kind of speakers bureau there, and you can find out all about that by going to CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com. While we're talking about the 20 Answers samplers, the 20 Answers books, I want to mention the 20 Answers sampler where you get all 26 books for up to 60% off. We want to send them to you for up to 60% off. That's just, no, you get the whole 60% off. I don't know why I'm saying up to. You get that's 40% of the cost of the 26 books, and we send them to you for absolutely free. You go to shop.catholic.com to get those books. Open forum today on Catholic Answers Live. Jim Blackburn is our guest. Jim himself, author of 4 of those 20 Answers books. If you have a question on the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church, give us a call, 888-318-7884. Jim, I have probably puffed you up enough with reference to all of your writing success and whatnot, and I got every single line full. Shall we just go to the phones?
Okay, yeah, let's go.
All right, Kaylee in Frederick, Maryland, watching on Facebook Live. Thanks for joining us on Facebook, Kaylee. I think we see that your name there every day. Your question for Jim Blackburn.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. Catholic Answers has really played a big role in bringing me to the Catholic Church. My question is, in the Catholic faith, you can obtain an annulment if you can prove that the marriage was never a valid marriage to begin with. Isn't this similar to the Protestant argument that a Christian who sins without repentance was possibly never a valid Christian to begin with? Is this a problem for the justification argument?
Okay, Kaylee, I'm sorry. I think we're having some technical problems, and I did miss just the very first part of what you said. But when you mentioned,
sure.
I got the question about the annulment and the comparison between, say, an annulment and the idea of once saved, always saved, relating to the idea of if a Christian sins, then he was never really a Christian to begin with. And first of all, you're correct that an annulment is all it is a declaration after an investigation by the church, by authorities who researched this. It's a declaration by them that what was believed to be a marriage, what was thought to be a marriage, what looked like a marriage, and even the couple themselves likely thought was a marriage, indeed was not. Something was missing. Something was missing in the form from the very beginning, or in the intentions. Something was missing so that an actual marriage did not come into existence. So that's what a declaration of nullity is. That was null from the start. So now, how can we relate that to the idea of once saved, always saved? Ordinarily, what Christians who subscribe to the once saved, always saved theology will say is that once you are saved, again, this is one argument. This isn't an argument that they all use, but what you're replying, or what you're asking about, is the argument that if a Christian is saved, then he will not sin. And if he does sin, then it's proof that he never really was a Christian. If he does sin, at least in such a way that he falls away, he loses his salvation, well, then he never really was a Christian to begin with. And I suppose a Protestant church who subscribes to that philosophy could set up an annulment process that would say, well, the validity of your Christianity was never there to begin with, since we believe you've now sinned. A problem with that is, though, we don't, at least as Catholics, we don't try to judge to that degree a person's culpability in a sin. We can certainly judge that a person's actions are grave matter, that they are the type of matter that separates them from God. However, for that person to actually separate himself from God, he must know that the matter of his action is grave, and he must freely choose it of his own free will. So we don't, as Catholics, judge that. That's between the Christian and God. And so we would never get into a situation of declaring the nullity of the validity of a Christian's faith, even if we did believe in the once saved, always saved theology. The truth is, as Catholics, of course, we recognize, as Paul mentions, that our salvation we can make a shipwreck of our faith, even once we are Christians. Paul, talking with Christians, tells them that if they fall back into the actions where they were before, they're in a worse situation than they were before they became Christians. So we know that the idea of once saved, always saved isn't something that stands up to scriptural scrutiny, really, from the very beginning.
Okay, does that work for you, Kaylee?
Okay, thank you so much.
Kaylee, thank you very, very much. Appreciate the call. It is Open Forum today on Catholic Answers Live. Jim Blackburn is our guest. We have to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Open Forum and your calls for Jim Blackburn after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Don't you just love listening to Jim Blackburn? Did you know you can book Jim or any of our other great speakers to speak at your parish or special event? Contact one of our seminar coordinators through the Speakers Bureau section on Catholic.com today to find out more information.
Hi, this is Tim Staples, and I'm challenging you to take the 20 Answers Challenge. Here's how the challenge works. When you purchase the sampler of all 26 books in the 20 Answers series, we're going to knock 60% off the price, and we're challenging you to finish them all this Lent and Easter season. And this year, to make it easier, we're offering free shipping on the sampler if you live in the continental United States. That's 60% off free shipping and over 500 answers to questions you have about the Catholic faith. Join us this Lent and Easter to take the 20 Answers Challenge, and together we can be part of something great. Call 1-888-291-8000 or visit the shop at Catholic.com now to get your set and begin taking the 20 Answers Challenge today.
We struggle with sin. We're distracted in prayer. We find it hard to be loving and easy to be selfish. Thankfully, the Church has given us Lent. the perfect time for reform, of reconversion to God and His will for us. The saints of the Counter-Reformation faced greater obstacles than these, yet they found the grace to persevere during a tumultuous period in the church. How can we do the same? Reform Yourself is a great place to start. We all need to reform our souls. This Lent, let the saints who reformed the church show you how. Order your copy of Reform Yourself today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. We are joined by Jim Blackburn, author of many things, including 4 of Catholic Answers' very own 20 Answers books. Open Forum means any question about any aspect of the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church is welcome. Let's go now to Jeremy in Lincoln, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Jeremy, your question for Jim Blackburn.
Hi. I was curious about when Protestants say by faith alone, what exactly does that mean? I've gotten into a conversation with a friend of mine who he's part of a non-denominational church, and we've discussed things back and forth, and he's tried to kind of explain it to me. He said something about God's grace is imputed, not imparted, and then he talks about the wrath of God, and I'm very confused exactly what he's talking about.
Okay.
All right. So we had another technical difficulty there. We'll have to wait to get Jim back on the line. Jeremy, so the question that you had was, what do Protestants mean when they speak about being saved by faith alone? And I'm happy to address it, but do we have Jim or do we not have Jim? Okay. All right. Apparently we do not have Jim. So Jeremy, do we have you?
I am here.
Okay, so there's a basic idea. I mean, I suppose one of the things Jim will probably say to you is that among various Protestants, there are a great many different Protestant churches, faiths, and confessions, and among the many different ones, there will be different meanings for exactly what faith alone means. But in general, the idea of faith alone begins with Martin Luther, writing in the early part of the 16th century, and he had several what are called the solas, that we know the faith or revelation by Scripture alone, that we are saved by faith alone, are among the two most famous of the Scriptures. Faith meaning the meaning of faith alone. Well, primarily it's a reaction in the theology of Luther to the idea that the church was selling indulgences, or that there were works that you could do, or even the idea that some people held that you could work out your salvation simply by doing works, which is not and never has been the theology of the Catholic Church. So the idea is, no, we are entirely dependent on...
I can hear, yes.
Sorry. All right, so Jim?
Yes, I didn't know if you're not either. Are we going
through my phone, or are we going through the
mic?
Jim, you're back on the air, and whatever you're doing is working. So if you want to address Jeremy's question about what does faith alone mean?
Okay, the direction I was going to go with this is, and I did hear some of what you were saying as well, Cy. But yes, there are many different ideas of what constitutes faith alone, what that particularly means, and there are different terms that are used, imputed faith and such, as our caller mentioned. But what I would recommend, and before I get cut off again, if I do, I want to mention a document that the Church published in 1999. It's actually a joint document, a joint declaration between the Catholic Church and the Lutheran World Federation, and it was on a declaration on justification, which has a lot to do with what we're talking about here. So what I recommend that our caller do, Jeremy do, is just type that in, look for that on Google, Joint Declaration on the Doctrine of Justification, and what you'll find is that Catholics and Lutherans got together and they looked at, well, this is what we believe as Catholics, and this is how we understand the terminology that we use, and this is how we're justified. Lutherans on their end did the same thing. We got together and realized that a lot of what we're talking about, while we use different terminology, we're really talking about the same thing in many different ways, in just using different language oftentimes. And so this joint declaration on the doctrine of justification is something that shows how the Lutheran understanding of justification and the Catholic understanding of justification can mesh together, can be understood in a really very common way. Now, there doesn't mean everything's perfect, and there were some issues after the document was issued, but nonetheless, I would recommend starting with that document. I think it's going to help Jeremy to have at least a basic understanding of, from one of the largest Protestant denominations, Lutheranism, how their idea of this and the Catholic idea of this are the same, and how they're different in many ways. So that's where I would start. Hope that's helpful.
Does that help you, Jeremy? Okay, well, no, Jeremy. We're going to have to just keep searching until some piece of equipment works around here. Let's go to Tom in Columbus, Ohio, listening on St. Gabriel Radio. Tom, your question, I'm praying to the Lord that you are there, Tom, and that we will be able to get an answer to you. Go ahead, Tom. Tom, are you there with us? All right, we'll go to Gina in Houston, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Gina, you are on with Jim Blackburn. Your question, please, Gina.
Hi there. So, the senators just took a vote, and unfortunately, I have read that there were 14 professed Catholic senators that voted to keep late-term abortion as something that is legal. Now, all of us as Catholics either do or should believe that any form of abortion is abhorrent and terribly wrong. So my question is, as people who profess their faith as Catholics and are standing up representing people as public officials, shouldn't there be some kind of a reprimand or something handed out to them by the Catholic faith saying, you as knowing individuals of public affairs, you as politicians professing yourselves to be Catholics, know or should know that what you have done is terribly wrong, and have some kind of reprimand up to excommunication from the church?
Okay, yeah, excellent question. And many Catholics who see this happening, who see these politicians who very publicly claim both to be Catholic on the one hand, and yet in their policy, in their politics, they are 100% anti-Catholic when it comes to things like abortion. So they're very contradictory, and this is scandalous. This can cause confusion among the faithful. This can, especially the faithful who hold these politicians up to be examples or recognize them to be public figures who are Catholics. So, what can be done about this? And this isn't something that the church has ignored. In fact, there are canons in the Code of Canon Law that are largely meant to address this kind of issue. For example, and I believe it is paragraph 916. I've got this in front of me. I'm sorry, Canon 916. The Code of Canon Law says a person who is conscious of grave sins not to celebrate Mass. I'm sorry. No, here maybe it's 915. That has to do with those obstinately persevering in manifest grave sin are not to be admitted to Holy Communion. And and the church imposes penalties. So, I mean, that's the very first thing that the church proposes here, or says here, is that if you have someone publicly, obstinately, and these are kind of these terms have meaning, have meat to them. When it's publicly, it's something that's known, and when it's obstinate, it's something that's been addressed with them, and they refuse to embrace the Catholic position on it. When you've got someone in a situation like that, such as a politician who does this, then the first thing is the church says they're not to receive communion. And there have been bishops and there have been pastors of parishes who have denied communion to politicians in those serious situations. A bishop, on his own authority, can impose other sanctions if he deems that it's necessary. And there have been bishops who have personally contacted politicians to sit down and discuss with them the issue. And there are many examples of this that have happened, but each bishop is going to be the authority in his diocese when he's got a politician who's doing this. So what I would recommend is, if you're seeing this happening in your own diocese or your own parish, and you don't think something's being done about it, or enough is being done about it, contact your pastor, and even take it up to the bishop and contact the bishop about it, because the bishop can do something. The very first step, again, is to avoid scandal. Let's not administer communion to such individuals. But oftentimes, I understand why we would need to take that further. So I hope that helps.
Gina?
It does help a great deal. The only problem is it's not within my diocese, but I feel like these people are poisoning. If we're all taking communion and we're all joining together with Christ, then whether it's in my diocese or not, I feel like it's a poison to the rest of the community. And as a former pro-choice person myself, then reformed to the Catholic faith, and once I saw the eyes of my first child, how can you be anything but pro-life? And for them to basically, had they all voted along with the Catholic faith, my understanding is we could have stopped late-term abortion. But because of their decisions to deny their faith, that is now not something on the table, at least not for this election. And
Yes.
more babies will die, and the blood is on their hands. I just don't want to commune with someone.
Gina, I wonder if you would agree with me. We could go even further and say it's not just a matter of standing up for the Catholic faith, but basic human dignity. I mean, killing children who are perfectly viable outside the womb. I think you don't have to be Catholic, you don't have to be Christian, you don't have to be religious in any way to know that's a horror. And that, I mean, it may take explaining to people and helping to develop consciences for people to understand in the earliest stages of development what's happening. It's the same thing that's happening, but it's harder for people to understand. But in these late stages, after 20 weeks, which is what these senators voted to continue to allow, there's no question in anyone's mind what's happening. Everybody knows exactly what's happening. So would you agree with me that it's not just a matter of these people standing up for the Catholic faith, but there's a level at which just basic human dignity needs to be stood up for?
Absolutely, and opposition of murder, because that's exactly what it is.
It is indeed, and most people seem to know it. I saw a poll of 79% of Americans agree with you on this, Gina, that after 20 weeks, I mean, we disagree on many things having to do with abortion as Americans, but 79% of Americans know when they see a baby, 20 weeks gestation. Just look at us up, just Google it. Just say 20 weeks gestation, human baby. See, look what you see. It's obvious what's going on. Jim, you wanted to say something before we go to a break?
Yes, Pope Benedict XVI did address the issue of politicians when they're not faced with a perfect solution to, say, ending abortion. And he mentioned that there can be times when a politician can vote for something that is incrementally better than where we are now. It makes that there's incremental progress being made towards our goal of ending abortion. But even if even if this new law or whatever it is being voted on isn't the perfect solution, a politician can, in cases where it's known that he completely opposes abortion, he can vote for something that's going to at least improve the situation and get us moving in the right direction.
Right. So that, Jim, if I'm just because we're coming up to the bottom of the hour, but if what you're saying then is what we want to be voting to end abortion, but it's okay to vote to limit abortion to before 20 weeks because, as Pope Benedict said, that's making an incremental progress towards achieving the final good that we want to achieve.
Yes, sometimes if that's the best a politician can do.
All right, we're losing you a little bit there, Jim. Anyways, we got to go to a break. Our number, 888-31-TRUTH. Gina, I didn't thank you, but thank you very much for that call. It is horrifying what happened in the United States Senate this week, and I think you certainly don't have to be Catholic to know that. 888-318-7884 is the number. If you have any questions on the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church, we welcome them. Give us a call. We'll be right back after this on Catholic Answers Live.
We're here for you. Give us a call today on Catholic Answers Live.
It might be said that anti-Catholic notions of the Church's history are the original fake news. With all the misinformation being spread, where does one look for the truth? In The Real Story of Catholic History, Professor Steve Weidenkopf gives you the facts on over 50 of the most common misconceptions about Catholic history and shows how to answer them simply and powerfully. Whether it's to answer claims about Catholicism's supposedly pagan origins, old myths about the Inquisition that never seem to go away, or more modern errors that anti-Catholics put forth, The Real Story of Catholic History is an essential resource for every Catholic's bookshelf. Order your copy of The Real Story of Catholic History today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
As the legend goes, the Protestant Reformation began when Martin Luther nailed a list of his grievances with the Catholic Church to the door of All Saints Church in Wittenberg, Germany. But do you know the whole story? In Catholic Answers' brand new documentary, The Protestant Revolution, you will hear from top apologists Tim Staples, Jimmy Akin, Carla Broussard, Trent Horn, and Steve Weidenkopf as they expose the errors of Martin Luther and of the other so-called reformers. This DVD will give you a clearer understanding of our Protestant brothers and sisters, and you will be better equipped to engage them about what separates us and about what unites us. Order your copy of The Protestant Revolution today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting shop.catholic.com, or by asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Look to EWTN for inspiring Lenten programming.
Jesus calls all of us to leave something behind. And Lent is a providential time to acknowledge what that is and then to do it. Now look, we've all got something to leave behind. Jesus knows it, we know it, we're better off without it, and we can't unreservedly follow him until we leave that behind.
Lenten programs now through Holy Thursday on EWTN Radio and TV.
I know you think that music is good, Nick, but that ain't the groovy music. We're getting there. We're getting closer to the groovy music. 888-318-7884 is our number. 888-31-TRUTH. Jim Blackburn is our guest. Our topic, whatever is on your mind having to do with the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church. Whatever is on your mind. If you have a question for you, for a question for a family member, a question, maybe even, I sometimes invite these, and maybe I shouldn't, I don't know. Maybe even if you want to challenge us on something that we Catholics believe, give us a call, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. If you've been listening, you know we've been having a little bit of technical difficulty with Jim Blackburn. So I have I have the great pleasure of welcoming in Jimmy Akin, senior apologist here at Catholic Answers, who has agreed to come by and answer questions until we can straighten out technical difficulties, if in fact we can. Let's go to Lisa in Oregon. listening on 88.3 FM. Lisa, you will be talking with Jimmy Akin. Your question, please, Lisa.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa. Your question.
Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Yes. Your question. Your question, Lisa.
I have two questions. Is lying a mortal sin?
It depends. Lying can be a mortal sin if you were to, for example, let's say you're in a court of law and you're a witness in a murder trial and you lie about what you saw so that either an innocent man is convicted of murder or a murderer is set free. Well, that lie has a grave impact on what the court decides. And because you're doing something wrong and it has grave weight, then if you do it knowingly and deliberately and say, you know, I know that this is going to really mess things up and I just don't care, then yeah, that's a mortal sin. On the other hand, if your husband says, you know, does this sweater look okay? And you know it's his favorite sweater and it's not really to your taste, but you say, oh yeah, honey, I think that sweater's great. Well, you're lying to him, but it's not on something anywhere near as important. And so that kind of lie is at most going to be a venial sin. It's not going to be a mortal sin because it doesn't fulfill one of the requirements for mortal sin. Mortal sin has 3 requirements. One of them is that you need to have full knowledge of the moral character of the act. You also need to do it deliberately anyway, and it needs to be of grave weight. And saying, yeah, honey, I think that's an attractive sweater is not the same as saying this guy killed somebody when in fact he didn't.
And what if it's like a really bad sweater, though? That wouldn't change the calculus there?
Still going to end up being venial under most scenarios.
Gina, you said you had 2 questions. Go ahead with the other one. Excuse me, Lisa, I beg your pardon.
How about if you want just to impress people and you're lying about anything or something?
It's going to depend on the situation. It is possible to be so self-absorbed and to lie about oneself in such an egregious manner that it could become mortal, but it's not automatically going to be the case. If I were to try to imagine a scenario where lying to impress people would be a mortal sin, well, let's suppose that that you've got plenty of money in the bank and you don't really need a high prestige job, but you lie in order to impress somebody so you can get this high prestige job and take it away from someone who's desperately in need of that job and is going to starve without it. Well, in that case, you would be doing grave damage to another person. You don't need the job, but someone else gravely does need it. And you've taken it away from them just so you can impress other people. Well, that would potentially be a mortal sin if you did it knowingly and deliberately, knowing that's what was going to happen, and you say, I don't care about this other person. I don't care if they starve. I just want to impress people. That's the only thing I care about. Well, then that would be a mortal sin. But that's a kind of implausible scenario. Most of the time when someone lies to impress somebody else or exaggerates the truth in order to impress somebody else, they're not doing it in a way that does that kind of grave harm.
Lisa, thank you very, very much for that question. I'm going to stop telling people I have a panther. Because
that's so cool.
No, but it's not true though, Jimmy. So
oh wait, it's not?
No, so that's why I got to stop now. Thanks for coming in, by the way. I really appreciate you coming down.
Oh, no problem.
And helping us out. Let's go to Frank in Washington State. Frank, your question for Jimmy Akin.
So this Ash Wednesday, I was encountering a lot of people asking about the ashes and everything on my head. And someone at work said, he asked if my whole family was Catholic and whatnot, and he said his family had brought him up Catholic, and he said he stopped being Catholic at 5 years old. And when he said that, I automatically thought, oh, something must have happened to where you just automatically shut everything off. And it was. He had a couple terrible things happen to him when he was little, and he just, didn't love God anymore and whatnot. So how would you explain to someone who's not Christian in my case, why God lets bad things happen.
It's a complex question. There are a bunch of things that I could say in response. In fact, I'd suggest actually that you get a DVD that I did called The Problem of Evil, because in that I have a whole, like 45-minute talk where I explain all the different aspects of things you can say, particularly in a situation where someone's faith has been challenged. And so obviously there's more that I cover there than what I can give in a brief radio answer. But to give you a starting point right now, I would say that if I'm talking to someone and they feel like they've been hurt and their faith has been challenged because something bad has happened to them, I would say, the first thing I would say is, I'm so sorry to hear that this happened to you. And from a Christian point of view, that's something that God doesn't approve of either. This terrible thing that happened to you is not something that he deliberately inflicted or deliberately caused. He may have allowed it for reasons that we can talk about, but it's not something that he did to cause you pain. When, from a Catholic point of view, when God allows evil things to happen, when he allows bad things to happen, it's always because he has some greater good that he is planning to bring out of it. So he doesn't cause these painful things for you, but he does allow them in order to allow a greater good. It's kind of like when parents take their children, when they're very small, to be vaccinated. From the child's point of view, getting a vaccination is a really traumatic thing. I mean, there you are in this strange place that smells funny, and all of a sudden your parents, who normally take care of you, are letting a stranger hold you down and stick a needle into your body. And that's a very, traumatic thing for a child. But what the child doesn't realize, because he's too young, is that actually this is going to spare him horrible diseases that he could otherwise catch that could cause even bigger problems for him. And so even though, it's not pleasant to be vaccinated, it's something that ends up helping you more in the long run if you're willing to undergo this momentary difficulty. And ultimately, from a Catholic perspective, that's the way it is with all of our different trials in this life. In fact, St. Paul in Romans says that God works in everything for the good of those who love him. And in 1 Corinthians, he talks about how the sufferings of this life aren't worth comparing to the wonderful things that God has in store for us in the future. And so they greatly outweigh any momentary suffering we have in this life, the same way that the benefits of good health outweigh the momentary discomfort of getting an injection. Also, and this is an important thing to note, this pattern of using things that otherwise are evil to bring about great goods is something that he himself was willing to undergo, because he became incarnate as Jesus Christ and used his own death on the cross as the way to bring about the salvation of the world. And so God is with us in suffering. He's willing to experience it himself as a way of bringing about great good. And so he doesn't abandon us in suffering. He's our companion, and he gives us the guarantee that ultimately a greater good will come out of this.
Frank, thank you very, very much for the call. It is time for us to take a break. I hope that is helpful to you. We'll take this break. We'll be right back with more Open Forum with our new guest, Jimmy Akin, right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Harry Connick Jr., and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Trent Horn, and I'm challenging you to take the 20 Answers Challenge. Here's how the challenge works. When you purchase the sampler of all 26 books in the 20 Answers series, we're going to knock 60% off the price, and we're challenging you to finish them all this Lent and Easter season. And this year, to make it easier, we're offering free shipping on the sampler if you live in the continental United States. That's 60% off, free shipping, and over 500 answers to questions you have about the Catholic faith. Join us this Lent and Easter to take the 20 Answers Challenge, and together we can be part of something great. Call 1-888-291-8000 or visit the shop at Catholic.com now to get your set and begin taking the 20 Answers Challenge today.
Wouldn't it be great to have a book to give to anyone to explain exactly why Catholics believe what we believe? The good news is that now there is. Why We're Catholic is the groundbreaking resource by apologist Trent Horn. That one book you can hand to anyone as a starting point for helping them find their way into, or back to, the practice of the Catholic faith. This Lent, plant seeds of faith in the hearts and minds of your non-Catholic friends and family. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic today. You can order your copies of Why We're Catholic by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Pope Francis said, all of us are called to mature in our work as evangelizers. We want to have better training, a deepening love, and a clear witness to the gospel. St. Paul Street Evangelization's online School of Evangelization will equip you with the tools you need to be an effective evangelist. We'll ask for a pledge of financial support, but if you're unable to give, we'll set you up for free. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live with our brand new guest, Jimmy Akin, senior apologist here at Catholic Answers and the author of A Daily
Bunches
Defense.
of stuff.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I wanted to say Daily Defense, 365 days plus one to becoming a better apologist. And we can't wait for that sequel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in the works.
Okay, all right.
It's going to be a while, though. I've got other books that have to come out first.
Oh, all right. Well, that's good to know. It's good to know the pipeline is full. Open forum means any question you've got about what we Catholics believe or do is welcome. You don't have to be Catholic to call. 888-31-TRUTH is the number. We go now to Michael in San Antonio, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Michael, you're on with Jimmy Akin. Your question, please.
Thank you. I've got a question. I've heard rumors about the Pope wanting to change, lead us not into temptation in the Our Father. And in regard to that, I read where in Origen's writings, where he explains and examines in detail the Our Father.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Maria Valtorta's writings, she says that Jesus explained temptation, and specifically in the explaining the Our Father to the apostles, he explained.
No, I'll need to issue a note there that Maria Valtorta's writings are not approved as private revelations, so one wants to proceed with caution regarding those. But are there any other points you'd like to bring up before I address the central question?
Well, in thinking about it, I was thinking about the fact that it seems like Jews have a way of saying things twice in different ways for emphasis.
Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily Jewish people have that, but certainly the biblical authors do. That form of parallelism is known as synthetic parallelism, and it's a common feature in the biblical writings, where something will be said one way and then they'll repeat it in slightly different words to kind of amplify the thought. So yes, that is a phenomenon that we find in the Bible. Go ahead.
And I was thinking, well, if you rephrased, lead us not into temptation, and said, lead us into temptation, with a pregnant pause in today's vernacular, and said, not.
Uh-huh.
Lead us not into temptation, not.
Mm-hmm.
It would be, to me, the same meaning, and it wouldn't have the negative connotation that people seem to, and it sounds like the Pope seems to connote with the Our Father.
Okay.
With the English translation, at least.
Yeah, so there's several things there to talk about. The first one is let's clear up what the Pope actually said, because there was an incident, it was in the news a month or two ago, where a bunch of newspapers started reporting, oh, the Pope says he wants to change the Lord's Prayer. Not true. That's not what happened. What happened was this. In France, the bishops of France approved a new translation of the Lord's Prayer where the last line of the Lord's Prayer, instead of saying, lead us not into temptation, said the French equivalent of don't let us fall into temptation. And that's a translation that's used in some languages. It's used, for example, in Spanish. The standard Spanish translation of the Lord's Prayer already and for a long time has been, don't let us fall into temptation. And it's not a literal translation, but it is something that conveys Jesus's meaning. At least it's defensible as something that conveys Jesus's meaning. There are actually other potential translations too. Given the original Greek that we have in Matthew's Gospel, it could also mean, well, actually I'm thinking of the next line, the protect us from evil could be protect us from the devil. From the evil one.
Yeah.
However, the lead us not into temptation line, literally, you would say something like lead us not into temptation, but it has also in some languages been translated don't let us fall into temptation. And the bishops in France made this change to the way they're saying it in France. And over in Italy, a journalist asked the Pope, well, is it okay for them to do that? And he said, yeah, it's okay for them to do that. It's fine for them to do that. And he actually kind of favors that as a translation. But he didn't announce any plans to change it. So it's up to the local bishops' conference to determine, what kind of translation they want to use for the Lord's Prayer. And there aren't any plans afoot here in the United States to change our English translation of it. So that deals with sort of one part of the question. Now, Michael, to go to the situation that you pose, it's true that based on a contemporary usage, you could translate it something like, lead us into temptation, not. and that would make sense in colloquial American English right now. But that kind of trailing not, number one, it's very recent and it's very colloquial. It's something that, as far as I'm aware of, came up in the 1980s or 90s. So it has a connotation of slang, number one. And it also has a connotation of sarcasm. And I think a lot of people probably prefer the Lord's Prayer to, number one, not be slang. Because you want to be reverent when you're talking to God. You don't want to be slangy when you're praying as a group in public. And number two, people also don't really want to be sarcastic when they're talking with God. And lead us into temptation, not. Just, it sounds kind of sarcastic. And so I think that a lot of people probably wouldn't prefer that translation. Even though it would make sense, they wouldn't prefer it because of those connotations it would have. I could also imagine some people not liking it because some people can be a little scrupulous. And when you say that first part of lead us into temptation before you get to the not, that could set off some people's scruples. So I could imagine that it not being popular for that reason. Also, I think it'd be unlikely that the bishops would approve it, in part because slang usages tend to have short lifespans. Even when phrases become very popular as part of slang, they tend to also die off rapidly. I mean, how many people remember the verb to Rambo? For a while, that verb was all over the place in the 80s, but nobody uses, he totally Ramboed that. Nobody says that anymore.
No.
And so because slang has a kind of limited shelf life, it's unlikely to be included in formal prayers that are meant to be learned and passed down through generations. That's why even in the English translation of the Lord's Prayer we're using today, we still have old-fashioned words like hallowed. I mean, nobody says, oh, may your name be hallowed. Nobody even knows what that means unless you explain to them that to hallow means to make something sacred or to consecrate it. And so because the lead us into temptation not has a slang usage, it's something that would be hard to pass down from one generation to another. And so I don't think that the bishops would be very inclined to use it, even though it might mean the same thing.
Michael, thank you very much for that call. Let's move along because we're heading towards the top of the hour. Let's go to Jackie. Jackie, your question for Jimmy Akin.
Hi.
Hi.
Again, thank you for taking my call.
No problem. Can you speak directly into the phone, Jackie?
I have an adult child who it seems has taken up an interest in reading a Buddhist book. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, I mean, I know nothing about Buddhism, obviously, because I'm a Catholic, but I want to know if you've got any kind of suggestions on how to address, how I should address him and what resources might be available to talk about this issue.
Okay, let me understand. So you have an adult child who's looking into Buddhism, and the child is or is not a Catholic? I know you're not, but what is the child?
Is a practicing Catholic.
Okay. Well, it's fairly easy to show that Buddhism especially in its traditional forms, but really any form of Buddhism, is not compatible with either the Christian faith in general or the Catholic faith specifically. In its traditional form, and I'll need to be quick because we're getting near the end of the show, but in its traditional form, which is known as Theravada Buddhism, it's the teachings of the original Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. What Siddhartha Gautama said was that it really doesn't matter whether the gods exist, because what you need to focus on is ending desire so that you can stop the process of reincarnation and get out of suffering. Because if you reincarnate, you're just going to suffer more. And so he believed, number one, he was agnostic on the question of are there gods or a god? And number two, he thought the afterlife involved reincarnation. Well, both of those, and those are the two key areas of religion. What's God like and what's the afterlife like? Those are the two big areas of religion. Well, on both of those, Siddhartha Gautama's views contrast with Christianity's, because Christianity says, yes, there is a God. There is one God, and he's a Trinity, and he's become incarnate in Jesus Christ and revealed himself to us. And that is very important. It is something that matters. And number two, the afterlife doesn't involve reincarnation. It involves the resurrection of the dead. And so those are two very different approaches. Now, some later forms of Buddhism kind of brought back in the idea that there are multiple gods of a finite nature, but even then they're disagreeing with the Christian faith, both about the fact there is one God and also about the fact that the afterlife involves resurrection rather than reincarnation. Also, the solution to our problems is different. Whereas there may be some interesting and valid philosophical insights that Buddhists have had, the ultimate solution to our problems in historical Buddhism is killing desire. And that's not the solution in Christianity. It's embracing God's grace as given to us through Jesus Christ so that we can have the fulfillment of our greatest and deepest desires. So there's not a compatibility between the two. If you'd like to read more about that, what I would suggest is contacting our apologist line, and we'll give that in just a second. I wrote an article a number of years ago on this subject, and if you call our apologist line and leave your email address, I'll see about digging up that article and emailing it to you, and also potentially some additional material that might help. Our apologist line number is 888-318. That's this number. 888 619-387-7200. There we go. So 619-387-7200. We also have additional resources at Catholic.com. If you just go there and type in Buddhism, some material will come up right there for you online.
Jackie, thank you very, very much for that call. Thanks to everyone who called today. Thanks for Jim Blackburn for his yeoman's efforts at making that connection with us. But somehow, something in the line didn't want to work. And a special thank you to Jimmy Akin.
Technology.
I know. I'm totally against it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for coming down the hall, Jimmy, and helping us finish
you.
up. This is Catholic Answers Live. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about beer and evangelization. Don't believe me? Well, tune in tomorrow. You'll find out. I'm telling you the truth. We'll see you then, God willing, on Catholic Answers Live.